Decades-old ban on women from driving in Saudi Arabia has finally come to an end. Many women gathered to drive on the streets of the conservative kingdom, which under the rule of the young Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman aims at becoming more moderate. It is indeed a historic day for Saudi women, but the road to gender equality is still long and steep. WION's West Asia Bureau Chief Daniele Pagani reports.
Time has finally come for Saudi Arabian women to take to the streets. No, not to protest, but to drive. The decades-old ban on women driving has finally come to an end. And they have all the reasons to be excited.
It feels weird. I'm so happy. There's no words can explain what I'm feeling right now. I'm just too proud to be doing this right now.
At the stroke of midnight, Saudi women jumped into their cars and drove around the streets.
Today is a historic day. Thanks to the leadership for this decision. It is a beautiful day. We are happy. Driving has started minutes, hours ago. There's difference between yesterday and today. Today we are here. Yesterday we were here or here. Thank you very much, and thanks to God we are witnessing this day.
It is the end of a long battle. Women were suppressed. They were threatened. In 1990, 47 women drove around the capital city of Riyadh to protest against the ban. Some of them had to abandon their houses.
It's so natural for her to drive and to get the insurance and everything, where it was extremely difficult for us in 1990. So I'm thrilled. I am so happy that our society and our leaders reach this point where they're driving, because it just makes you feel so natural. We're just like any other women around the world.
But the victory is now complete. After decades of ban, it is not easy to find female driving instructors, and often the cost of women to attend the driving classes is way higher than that for men. But many have already enrolled.
We end up now for over 85,000 registered and already enrolled throughout the training with the different levels. We have over 5,000. And we have more than 700 already graduated and get their license.
And in Jordan, women too rejoice for their Saudi sisters.
Well, it's a great step for women's rights in Saudi Kingdom. More especially, so already right women use, or the women have in other countries that the Saudi women lately obtained, or lately it was lifted for them.
Saudi Arabia was the only country in the world where women were not allowed to drive. The ban lifting is a part of the young Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman's plan to make Saudi Arabia a more moderate and open-minded country. Critics see it as an attempt to appeal to foreign investors to join the Saudi economy in a bid to diversify the country's absolute dependence on oil. Lifting the ban is undeniably a step forward, but the road to freedom is steep and long. Saudi Arabia remains an ultra-conservative society where a woman is subject to a man's guardianship for all her life. it is the man of the family who has the final word. Days before the women driving ban came to an end, Saudi authorities arrested at least 8 of the women who campaigned for lifting of the ban. Their arrest is a part of larger crackdown which hit religious personalities, businessmen, activists, and even members of the royal family who criticized the Saudi government.
What is happening in Saudi Arabia very much mirrors the social fabric of a country, a social fabric which is divided. There is a young generation who tries to struggle against old beliefs and the ultra-conservative approach of another part of the country. And on the one hand we have the lifting of a ban which prohibited women to drive, but on the other hand we have a wave of arrest for all those who were critiques with some of the government measures. The young Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman knows very well that his country needs to become more moderate, both if he wants to attract more investment and also if he wants to avoid the best brains of Saudi Arabia to travel abroad and find jobs abroad. From Amman, Jordan, Daniele Pagani for WION.
All right, joining me live from Hong Kong is Ratna Begum, a researcher with a Human Rights Watch group. Ratna, thank you so much for joining me on this discussion. Now, it's a historic day, no doubt, but I'm given to understand that you have some worries of your own. And as you've written in one of your pieces, that the country's male guardianship system, the biggest impediment to Saudi women's rights, remains in effect.
That's correct. Today is a historic day for women in Saudi Arabia, primarily being an achievement of almost 3 decades of activism by women's rights activists. But where are those women who helped bring about the lifting of this ban? They are nowhere to be seen. That's because they have been silenced, imprisoned, or forced into exile. Now we have young and old women on the streets taking behind the wheels, but the very women who helped put them there, are not around. None of the journalists, no camera person is able to actually document the women who defied the driving ban, who helped bring about this change. They are nowhere to be seen.
And also, you also write that there is one obvious answer as to why Saudi authorities might be arresting these women. Back in September, around the time of the announcement, the driving ban would be lifted. Authorities called Saudi women activists and told them not to speak to the media. The purpose seemed to be to ensure that the Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman would get all the credit. Your thoughts?
That's right. So in September, as I said, it was the time when just before they lifted the ban, they called Saudi women's rights activists and told them not to speak to the media, even making positive comments. Now, the current arrests were happening just weeks before the lifting of the driving ban, and they included women who had been defying the driving ban and who had been speaking to international media. It seems as if the authorities were rounding them up and arresting them because international media were all flying into Saudi Arabia. They wanted to speak to women. They wanted to speak to the real champions behind this, and yet they're not able to do so. Why? Because they're behind bars, or they've been silenced, intimidated into silence. Now, not just because of the fact that they would then be taking credit for this reform, because it would speak to Saudi Arabians to say, activism can win out. You can actually see reforms in your country if you demand for such reforms. If the Saudi Crown Prince wants to make it clear that he is the only reformer in the country and only he can provide you with progress in your country, he needs to make sure that only he is being seen as the person who helped bring about this reform, not the actual women who helped do this. At the same time...
Yeah, please carry on.
At the same time, he is also sending, so he's cultivating an image at home as the only reformer at home, but also abroad. It's the very first time that we're seeing such a crackdown in which he's arresting activists and yet taking credit for the very same reform that they called for. This is highly unusual and it's absolutely hypocritical. The next thing, of course, is that by arresting them, you're going to have a limited amount of further calls for reform. One of the reasons why the Saudi authorities haven't lifted this driving ban for so many decades is because they knew that if they conceded to this demand, Saudi women would ask for much, much more. Because frankly speaking, the driving ban is one of the most bizarre forms of discrimination in this world. And yet the Saudi authorities were unwilling to reform that. And really, it's just a very, very small part of a much wider form of systematic discrimination against women, which, as you noted, is the male guardianship system. Women are treated as perpetual minors in their own country. From birth until death, they must have a male guardian who conducts a range of crucial decisions on their behalf, including obtaining a passport, traveling abroad, married, undertaking higher education. Even if you're serving a prison term, you're not even allowed to be released unless you have a guardian to take you into custody.
Right. On that note, Ratna Begum in Hong Kong, thank you so much for joining me live on the discussion. Appreciate it.